from Jersey?
Yes, I was.
So am I.
Are you actually?
Yeah.
No way! Speaking of which as well, so I also hear you're teaching at BIM. I also went to BIM for uni.
Oh really? Which one? London or Brighton?
The Brighton one. Did music journalism.
So did I. I went to the Brighton one, yeah. You know, I did my Masters a few years ago, and I did it so I could, you know, get into that side of thing, you know, with actual proper credentials and what have you.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine is the head of songwriting there, and you know, and my other friend is the head of estates, and the other friend is like head of vocals, and it was like really last minute. I went for it and got it, you know. So it was cool, and I'm having the best time there.
How's it going with obviously COVID?
It's interesting because I haven't met any of my students. It's like you're trying to get to know them over Zoom. I'm lucky that I've got a great bunch of students that I get to lecture, you know, and it's really cool to kind of like do the full circle thing, you know, like be where they are, go out and do it all, and then come back. It's one of those things. You feel like a bit of a parent, you know. You go like, well, don't do that because it will definitely negatively affect you here and what have you, you know. So it's trying to use my experience and my knowledge of everything that I have to steer them in the correct direction.
Because as well, you've released, like, you guys, Rocket Dolls aren't on a record label, so you've done all that yourself. And you've also just started your own PR company with that as well. So how do they all kind of play in with each other?
You know, I've signed some nice PR deals and I've signed some horrific PR deals, you know. Yeah. And then a couple of years ago, it kind of like half accidentally fell in my lap to work with Claire Lloyd at Central Press PR. Yeah, she's kind of like my mentor of like in the world of PR, and as soon as I got into it and doing all the bits and pieces behind it, it was like, I really like this, you know. And it was, and the joy of like getting someone a review in a magazine they really wanted, or you know, getting them on a radio station they really wanted is like amazing. Yeah, to have that feeling with it is just so good. Claire like does big acts and stuff, and so I was like, well, I'll concentrate on artists and stuff that have never had PR before. Yeah, just kind of use the negative experiences and stuff that I've gone through myself, and try and make sure that they don't happen to other people. You know, that's kind of like my main ethos in the whole of my artist development stuff that I do, and the work I do at BIM, and, you know, co-writing sessions I do, and obviously the PR company, you know, just try to make sure that I can help at least steer people in the correct direction, you know.
Who would you most likely like to get stuck in a lift with?
Ian Thornley. He's like my hero. Or Daniel Johns from Silverchair. I think it'd be a bit more geeky with Ian Thornley. I could talk like about like, so what guitar pick are you using and things like that. With, you know, Daniel Johns, it would be, you know, like what the hell's going on in his crazy head.
So your brand new album Art of Disconnect came out earlier this year. Because it came out just on the cusp of COVID as well, didn't it? So when that was when that was released, did you have to change anything about any ensuing plans?
Well, it completely has destroyed the whole thing around it, I think. That's not being like super like pessimist with it. You know, that's just the facts of what's happened to it. And it's a shame because I love that record and I worked so hard writing it. It took me like nearly 2 years and it was already delayed. It was supposed to come out November 2019.
Okay, yeah.
And then it didn't. So then it came out, the 1st of May, which tying into the end of a touring season, into festival season. So we had like the summer and the back end of the year like completely sewn up, and we were going to go to Germany, France and Spain, and like we were just about to announce that we were playing Australia and Japan. You know, I enjoyed making that record so much, and I love how it sounds, and I got to work with some of my heroes as well, you know, like as a bit of like a production geek, like I've always admired Chris Sheldon, and he did like Foo Fighters and Slaves to Gravity and Feeder and all sorts of Biffy Clyro and Don Brocco and what have you, and I love all of those bands. You know, whenever I've like looked on the back and saw his name, you know, it's like, oh man, one day I wish I'd get to work with him, and then I did.
Yeah.
And now he's a friend of mine, which is really lovely. And it's just a shame that you have big anticipation for this record, and then that's it. Because of the nature of the industry now, it's almost like unsalvageable because it's old already.
If it's any consolation, I was doing some interviews throughout the summer during lockdown, and about 3 different artists I interviewed all mentioned you and your new album. So word of mouth is still good. Word of mouth is still good.
I'm glad someone bought it.
I've been quoted as saying you've started off with about 30 songs that you had to whittle down to 13. So, but how did you decide which ones to put on the album? Did you have a certain vibe that you wanted to go for that?
It's not that I write the same subject matter in each song, but they come from the same place. They're all written from my perspective of things, and they're very personal to me. They're not about the other two. They don't include the other two. They're my songs that I've written, if you know what I mean. One for an easy way to just come out and say it like that. Well, what we did was what is a group of songs that they sound the best together.
Yeah.
Not that songs weren't good enough to be on there or good enough to, or the songs weren't bad. It's 1 or 2 were crap. They always are. It was finding the best amount of songs that fit together. And there was 14, but when it came to the mix, the album just wasn't feeling right. And we took one of them out, and then the album just flowed. Right. So it's interesting, the difference one song or 2 can make. You effectively got almost 3 albums worth of material that you've got to ditch 2 albums worth to kind of fit together. So, and also which songs that you liked as well. That's an important thing. Yeah. There's some songs that were just straight up rock songs, and a lot of those just got kind of pushed to the side because they weren't special enough to go with the rest of them. Little cool things about the record, the first chord on the piano is the last chord of the piano on the album. So if you play it constantly round, it moves in to itself together.
That's so cool.
For those things I know they're geeky musical
this is good
music thing. yeah, they're really cool, man. Cool, and when I was a kid growing up, I listened to records from Soundgarden and Alice in Chains and stuff. They always had these cool little quirky bits and pieces going on, and there's a record by This Is Menace as well. That the last track on the album is the whole album played backwards in a minute.
Okay.
And it sounds like you're going insane, and I just love stuff like that. So
I'll have to check that out.
I tried to come up with our own thing. There was with Nevermind, they have the secret song at the end and things like that. So it's what could we do that would work? It just so happened that the last chord accidentally is the first.
Of the ones that didn't make it onto the album, are you gonna obviously recycle them for any future material? Or will they be lost to the darkness forever?
It's not that the songs aren't good, because there's some of them that I like, and I'll put them on and jam with them and stuff like that. But that side of things being done.
Yeah.
That cycle, was about me in a different life, I suppose. And I'm not that person anymore. So playing that stuff is, it doesn't feel very good. I think I'm at that juncture now where I just want to write songs for myself.
Yeah.
I don't think writing songs for purpose, not saying I have done, but, there is something in the back of your mind that goes this one could be successful, or, this one will be the single, and things like that, so all the stuff I've been writing over the past year, it's been very much for me. Even now when I listen to something of The Art of Disconnect, I'm oh man, such a different world I was in then to I am now. In a good way, of course. Maybe my personal life was a bit fucking weird. It's cool that I can look back on it and just as that was cool.
Yeah.
And just everything that I've got moving forward is strictly looking forward.
You've also been quoted as saying that you like to write song titles first and build the song around that. So, what do you reckon from this album in particular is your favourite standalone song title?
I love The Clear Light of Self-Hatred.
I was just looking at that one.
Yeah, it's such a great title. And I have to give credit, I didn't come up with that title. A friend of mine, Mark Claydon, he's the bass player in Pitch Shifter. He came up with it, And I was like, dude, I'm going to totally steal that title. This is a great song title. And he's like, yeah, okay, cool, man. And then I wrote something around it. So I can't say that was mine, but it's without doubt the best one on there for that. It's a great title.
Yeah, I think either that one for me or Blueprint for a Breakdown.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's
it just kind of sums
too.
2020 up altogether.
Yeah, right. Yeah, totally. Yeah, maybe I predicted that.
Obviously, your music is influenced by so many different genres and artists. But who would you say you're influenced by that would surprise people the most?
My girlfriend is chiming in. See what I did there? Panic at the Disco in the corner. You know. You know. So I love Panic at the Disco, man. From the emo days to the pop days, I actually prefer the pop days now. And you know, I drive my girlfriend fucking mad because I'm always just listening to like Brendan Urie, and I'm like, oh, check this out, Brendan Urie did this. She's like, I've had enough of fucking Brendan Urie, mate.
You're like a little fangirl.
Yeah, I'm totally fangirl over him. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that like I like Nirvana and Foo Fighters and you know those like guitar bands. You know, like, especially Alice in Chains. I really like Justin Bieber. I like 21 Pilots. You know, I like Panic at the Disco. I don't really listen to much rock anymore.
Okay.
You know, I listen to more kind of like rock influenced pop. Like 21 Pilots or Imagine Dragons and things like that, you know.
Have you heard the new AC/DC album?
I don't like AC/DC. I'm not afraid to say I don't like it. I don't know why they've released a new album.
Interesting.
If I'm honest, I don't like classic rock at all. I never have.
Okay.
I think that they're great at what they do, but, you know, it's cool that they're still doing it, you know, like over 40 years later, and that's commendable, isn't it, you know?
Yeah, of course.
You know, the biggest lifespan of a band nowadays is like 5 to 10 years, and then you never hear of them again, and they've lasted literally the course of so many decades and genres and stuff, and I suppose testament to their fan base and who they are. They've always stuck to what they are, you know, so there's got to be something to be said about that, you know. As much as I don't like it, as I'd wish I could get anywhere near what they've done, let alone survive 40 years.
Saying that, with you obviously only working in the music industry as well, not just being in a band, and teaching at the uni now, do you think that's going to give you a kind of head start and an insight into how to go on for more than 5-10 years like most bands will be doing now?
Yeah, because I get to work with so many different genres. The stuff that I'm writing now, I wouldn't class it as rock. When you're kind of influenced by different genres and stuff as well, it does change how you look at releasing and how you write and where you want to go from where you are now and things like that. And the great thing about being in PR is you get access to, you know, you're friends with other PRs, you know, that do different genres, and you're always kind of like catching up with them, like, hey man, how's it going? You know, what you been up to? And then they're like, oh dude, I heard about this the other day, you must check it out, you know, stay on top of it, and I can say likewise to someone else and things like that. So it is handy. I heard someone say like, oh, you know, because Nikki works in the industry, he's going to, you know, jump his way somewhere, but like, COVID or not, whether I like it or not, the album didn't do anything, so it's not like just because I'm in the industry it doesn't mean that anything's going to get any further or any better.
Does pizza belong on pineapple?
Oh, does pizza belong on pineapple?
Yeah.
Firstly, I think pineapple does belong on pizzas, and I think pizzas do belong on pineapple.
There's so many layers in your music as well that the three of you managed to sound like 10. Another interview I was listening to, you said you wouldn't be able to handle another guitarist. You have tried one. But are there any limitations with that while you're trying to play live at all?
Oh yeah, I don't know why it is, but like if I've usually, you know, played with another guitar player, they just piss me off. You know, it's like, your tone's not correct, or like you're fucking about too much and you're doing stuff wrong, man. You know, so like I've just never enjoyed I've never enjoyed the company of another guitar player. But you know, so whenever I've written songs, and if you've looked back through Rocket Doll's kind of releases, it's always been very like there's three people, that's what you hear.
Yeah.
But as it's progressed on, it's like, especially if you look at, you know, the difference between our EP that came out in 2009 to Art of Disconnect, like, is that the same band? You know, because the production is the same, all the guitar sounds are completely different, the way we play is different, songwriting style, of course, is very different, and just kind of, you know, not being afraid to use different layers and stuff. But the downside of that is, you know, there is only three of us, and if you're wanting to play, you know, The Art of Disconnect, the song, live, you need a 24-piece orchestra, and you need a choir, and you need a piano player, and you need another guitar player in a different tuning. There's two different guitar tunings on that one song that bounce off each other doing different things. And I remember Kelly Jones from the Stereophonics always saying, he goes, do you want to be a band like the Beatles, or do you want to be a band like Free? If you're a band like the Beatles, it just doesn't matter. I'll just throw the kitchen sink at it and come up with songs. Or do you want to be a band like Free, you know, where it's just like four dudes in a room playing, and that's it. You know, you don't hear anything else. There's no overdubs. There's nothing like that. And I suppose we've made that transition from being Free to the Beatles. I'm not saying I'm anything like Free or the Beatles, by the way. It does create limitations. So I'm not afraid of using technology to your advantage as well. You know, like we play to a click. You can have things triggered off. Piano comes out of the PA. You know, type of thing. We have like in-ears and all that stuff. And what's nice as well is that, you know, you always know you're never going to be faster or slower every night. The song's going to have that same intensity. You know, I suppose working industry does give you the kind of insight for that, like especially doing a lot of like touring work as well. Yeah. The amount of artists that have that stuff going on that you think aren't, and they pretend that it's all like, you know, is hilarious. Especially a lot of the legend bands who like, they like, oh, we're like as raw as we were. And I'm like, you're not. You know, I don't go around pretending that we don't take advantage of technology and we don't take advantage of, you know, the industry and the genre moving forward. It's great because when we play live, you know, you can hear an orchestra and a piano section and a choir, and it's great, you know, and you're like, wow, this sounds awesome. And like, yeah, it does sound awesome.
Do you prefer writing and recording songs or performing them?
I have like a love-hate relationship with playing live.
Okay, how come?
I think it's because, you know, maybe I'm jaded, but I think it's because of, you know, all the years that you spend like playing to empty rooms.
Yeah.
That never gets easier. You just learn to deal with it better. When you're playing a venue and it's 200 cap or something like that, and there's like literally 50 people in there, you're like, the hell am I doing? But then equally, you could, you know, 2 nights later, you could play a 400 cap venue and it'd be rammed.
Yeah.
And everyone's wearing your t-shirts and, you know, singing the songs and stuff. So it's a weird one, you know. And the only show I played this year was Planet Rock's Winter's End. So I think that was a few thousand in like a little mini arena thing, you know, and that was awesome. You know, so I'm glad that the only show I played this year was like a sick one. No one predicted this shit happening, and it has a knock-on effect in all areas, you know, and you have to be selfish in scenarios like this. And I've had a lot of life personal changes this year, and, you know, I'm thinking very selfishly because I never have done before, and I'm liking that. You know,
sometimes you have to.
Yeah, fucking right you do, you know, and I'm enjoying not being in all that shit all the time, and I'm loving just being, you know, I love working at BIM, and I love writing songs, and I love being with my girlfriend, you know, and the kids and stuff, and I just love that. You got to look at, you know, I've seen actually Sworn Among Us, a band. Okay. And they just split up this morning because of those reasons. They're like, you know, we can't carry on going forward for the foreseeable. We've got to concentrate on our families and being financially stable. Yeah. And that's a smart move, in my opinion. It's only bands that have got fucking bankroll behind them that are going to survive, you know, and we're not one of those bands. Totally digressing off your question, which is a classic thing I do. It's like ADD McGee. Songwriting. I love songwriting at the moment. That's definitely my favourite thing. The idea of standing on a stage right now is like, no.
Which song would you most like to play a cover of?
Probably Heart Shaped Box by Nirvana.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that song. We talked about doing that for a few times, like just going to the studio and recording a version of it. I suppose that's one thing of like always being in an original thing and never doing covers, is that like there is a few things you go, I'd love to have learned that song and play it live, I don't really know how to play a lot of other people's songs. I've always tried to just be completely myself all the time.
What's the first vinyl you ever bought?
Performance and Cocktails by the Stereophonics.
When was that? How old were you when you got that?
2001, 2002. Okay. Got it in HMV when it was in Voisins.
Yes! Yeah, I remember that. I got my first album from there as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I worked in there for a bit, years ago.
I'm so jealous. I tried to get a job there once when it was still there.
It wasn't a good... I didn't enjoy it there at all.
No? Oh.
I've worked with 3 HMVs and I've hated all of them.
What?
If I buy anything from artists, it's very much I'll buy from them direct.
Yeah.
Or I'll pre-order it on iTunes or something if it comes out, things like that. But I just stream stuff now. There's a way around to beat the, I teach a lot about this,
okay.
About this kind of stuff. The problem is Spotify didn't make any profit, right, for like its first 10 years or something.
Okay.
So, and I'm not saying, like, I'm not sticking up for fucking billionaire Daniel Ek by any stretch of the imagination here. But like from a business point of view, right, it's the most popular way to consume music.
Yeah.
Looks like it's the way it's heading is it's turning into a label itself, where you saw now it owns Joe Rogan. What I personally believe is going to happen is, very much like Netflix came out. It was like, in America, it was like a vending machine thing. You put $5 in, you got a DVD out, and then you returned it. Thing, and then it turned to this online streaming thing. Then Amazon had one. Now Apple TV's got this streaming thing, and YouTube are doing stuff as well. Like you can buy films on YouTube. And then Netflix started going, well, we're going to create films and TV shows just for our channel. And that's like, well, I want Netflix then because they got shows no one else can get.
Yeah.
I very much see like Apple are then going to try and buy an artist. So you'll only be able to listen to Taylor Swift on Apple Music.
Yeah.
And I think this is where you're going to start seeing, the gap between big and underground just get bigger and bigger in a bad way.
Yeah.
But it will mean that there's more money pumped into these things.
Kind of sounds like a dystopian film.
I know, right?
Terrible
but
future.
I think that's exactly the way things are going to be going. Just from like looking at how markets work and looking at things in the industry and looking at how patterns work, and it's very much the same thing. Like you get exclusives on PlayStation versus Xbox.
Yeah.
That mentality is what is going to happen to the music industry.
I wonder if the vinyl resurgence is going to have any impact on the future, or if it's just a blip in the timeline.
I don't think it will. I don't think it sounds better. I think it sounds different. Like Tidal, the quality's the same as the master, isn't it? So it's like better than a WAV, it's better than a CD. It's better. It's like the exact quality of the master when it's created. You can't physically get better quality than that. You just need good speakers and equipment to be able to handle it, right?
Yeah.
And that's another argument, isn't it? You go like, well, people don't, we spend all this money and it's streamed like that. And they're like, yeah, but, if you're listening to it off your phone,
it's going to be shit.
It's going to sound shit, but is there a market for people buying good stereos and stuff? No. So, it's a really, if you just look at it as a whole, which you have to, with all that stuff, it's really hard to kind of grasp where a little issue or something is, where you get people going, oh, the quality's shit, or not getting paid enough. And I love Spotify. I love how that works, because someone goes, oh, dude, you ever heard of this band? I go, no. And in 10 seconds, I'm like, whack, or headphones in, and like, oh, that's cool, or save it to later and I'll go and check it out, Before, as you know, it was like, oh, I'll catch the 7 from St. Lawrence and I'll have to go all the way through Millbrook and shit and get into town and then walk into Voisins shit, and then go all the way back. But I mean, I love physical format. Like, I still buy CDs, you know. But like, predominantly, I'm always on Spotify. I enjoy how it works. I enjoy that format. You know, do I agree with how much they pay? No, but I understand why. Because the record companies originally, they struck a deal with Spotify because they obviously need a license to be able to use the music, right?
Yeah.
So what Dan Elect did, he didn't go to the artist, he went to the labels, because the labels were the ones that owned the rights to all the songs. They had all the licenses.
Yeah.
So they struck a deal with that. So before people can hate on Spotify, you have to hate on the labels, because they're the ones that struck some stupid deal that meant they still had money. It's a myth. There's more money being earned in the music industry right now than there has ever been.
It's just the artists aren't seeing it.
It's just not filtered down to the artist anymore. You know, it's just that the artist receives 0.003 of a cent, a USD cent. And I think if your song goes past 1 million, it goes 0.005. You know, I think we worked out yesterday with my students that if you, on 0.003, if you had 2 million streams, you get $6,000. They're saying the streaming should be made a minimum of 1 cent, and there's another campaign to get streaming's worth 10 cents every stream. When they say every stream, I think that's because it has to clock past 1 minute to accommodate that. So if you listen to a song that isn't, and don't go past 1 minute, that artist doesn't get paid for that stream. And also, if you skip a song, that sends an algorithm to Spotify saying the song's not good. Yeah, so when people release new records and they sit there and go, no, like that, that's sending a negative algorithm for your song to Spotify saying this is not being liked. This is not being liked. If it worked out, if Spotify was to pay the artists 10 cents a stream, it would cost you $300 a month to have a Spotify account.
Do you know how many CDs I could buy with that?
Something has to change. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But I think if we're to take it Spotify to 1 cent a stream, you know, it's going to be about £30 a month.
Which isn't actually a lot to ask of people, considering you've got basically an entire universe of music just on your phone or on your laptop.
But people don't view music as something that's worth value.
Yeah, which
you know,
sucks.
there's loads of studies, especially in the UK, that the best value for money that they have is video games. They feel that owning a car, buying music, and having a mobile phone aren't as good as buying a video game. So if you buy video games, you feel like you're happy spending £80 on a game.
Yeah.
It's the only industry that's been able to kind of go up.
Do you think it's because with video games, obviously, you have to play it from start till finish, whereas with music now, because of Spotify, you don't have to consume the entire thing. You can just pick and choose what you want.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. I think it also comes down to, we live in this world of like fast food mentality. Songs are getting shorter. Trying to get your song on the radio, if it remotely goes past 3 minutes, they're like, whoa, you're taking up too much airtime, which means the artist is going to get paid less PRS royalty money for having, less minutes on the radio and things like that. There's so much little variables in it that hinder one thing or another, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's down to having that fast food mentality. That's why albums are dying, because people can't consume all of that stuff in one hit. You know, it's not in your nature now to do that. It's like swiping mentality. People consume more music in the car and the gym than they do anywhere else. You know, and I don't know a lot of people that like listening to an album. I love listening to an album.
Yeah, same.
Hearing the story and, but I'm a songwriter, so I understand what's going on. But I try to use this example to people like, well, if you put on a series on Netflix, you don't go to episode 1, then 6, and then 3, then 8. You know, you go 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, they're in an order for a reason, so you should listen to it in that fashion.
Which bands can you listen to over and over and over again?
Big Wreck, Nirvana, Panic at the Disco, Silverchair. Yeah, you too, man. You take it easy. All the best. I'm losing the grip. I'm